During the interview that day, Anna was once again looked down upon with the interviewer's discriminatory gaze. Another rejection Anna had heard over the years. He believed that Anna's face didn't fit the job. Even though Anna tried to argue that she had the skills, experience and good education and would perform well in the role, he remained uninterested. It was truly pitiful for the girl. Anna went to find her friend to confide in. This was probably her only friend. A beautiful girl sat across from her, but she seemed to truly understand Anna and made an effort to comfort her. She then made a suggestion that startled Anna, but perhaps it was the best option for her right now: cosmetic surgery. Hearing this, Anna's face showed a hint of worry and unease. She believed that it carried some risks, and her financial situation was also tight. Suddenly, Anna's friend became impassioned, stating that they couldn't wait any longer. She believed that Anna had lived with this ugly face for far too long. She began to show off her diamond ring, revealing that she too had undergone cosmetic surgery to become beautiful and had now been proposed to by her dream guy. Anna was shocked to hear this. Could beauty really have such a tremendous effect? Suddenly, something appeared that made Anna panic. Anna's beautiful friend's face suddenly appeared to have foreign objects, like dozens of insects crawling beneath her skin. But it seemed that she didn't notice it. Anna jumped up and touched her friend's face, but everything returned to normal. Could it be that Anna had imagined it? The beautiful face reappeared, and with her appearance, Anna's friend became extremely confident and radiant. She then handed Anna a business card for the cosmetic surgery clinic she had gone to. Anna held the card, a bit strange because the address was in a rather remote area, but she didn't think much of it. The next morning, Anna decided to visit. Following the address on the business card, Anna found the clinic. It wasn't too simple, but a large, well-kept hospital. After a consultation, the doctor handed her a bill for the surgery, and it seemed like Anna would need to completely overhaul her face. As soon as Anna saw the cost, her face turned pale. It was indeed a very high amount, beyond her current means. Seeing Anna's reaction, the doctor understood that she was poor, but he didn't forget to mention that Anna's face had many things to correct, and no costs could be cut. Hearing this, Anna wanted to give up and stood up to leave. She didn't think her face was that bad. The doctor smiled cunningly and said that if she didn't have the money, she could try another way, which would cost only a third of the price, but the results could be far better. Anna didn't hesitate much and immediately became eager to know what it was. The doctor opened a drawer and took out a red flyer. It seemed this wasn't the usual method. The eye-catching flyer promised to repair the entire face at a low cost. But there was one condition. The condition was that regular maintenance would be needed, and Anna would have to return after a while to maintain her face. Without thinking much, Anna slammed her hand on the table to show her determination, wanting to do it immediately. Sometime later, after undergoing anesthesia, Anna had no idea what happened or what the doctor had done to her. Finally, the day came to remove the bandages and reveal her beautiful face. But this method was truly effective, causing no pain, no long wait, just a short time for immediate results. The doctor brought a large mirror in front of Anna, but she was so nervous she didn't dare to look. The doctor urged her to look, saying that Anna's face was now incredibly beautiful, and there was no need to feel embarrassed. Only then did Anna muster the courage to look in the mirror. She was stunned by her reflection. It wasn't her anymore, but a beauty goddess. She applied to large companies again, hoping to try her luck once more. The interviewer was also captivated by her, unable to stop staring at her beauty. With her already attractive figure, now enhanced by a perfect face, Anna seemed to shine. The companies she applied to and interviewed with started sending her job offers. The interviewer sitting across from Anna wanted her to start immediately, but his lecherous gaze gave it away. Today was indeed a lucky day for Anna. After interviewing at 3 places, all of them wanted to hire her. In a cheerful mood, Anna invited her close friend to a coffee shop, and her friend was also surprised when she saw Anna. She believed that with her new face from the surgery, no one could reject Anna, and she would soon be surrounded by rich men. Hearing this, Anna felt a little upset. She didn't like the mention of her surgery and wanted to forget her ugly past, so she became uncomfortable when her friend kept bringing it up. Her friend wondered what she had to hide. Surgery was just surgery. She thought Anna was too superficial. After hearing this, Anna started to lose her temper. She believed her friend was too nosy and ungrateful. Her friend thought Anna was ungrateful, already forgetting who had led her to the clinic. The two argued back and forth, and things heated up, neither willing to back down, and Anna stood up to leave. Anna's friend didn't back down either, suggesting they should cut ties and no longer be friends. Back home, Anna soaked in the bathtub to relieve her stress, continuously muttering curses at her friend. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a message. It seemed to be from the clinic, notifying her of something, but Anna didn't care. With her current beauty, she had everything she wanted, and the guys couldn't stop chasing her. She felt that these things were meant for her, and her face had the right features to become this beautiful. She was satisfied with her appearance and would no longer listen to anyone. After finishing her bath, Anna happily wrapped herself in a towel and stepped out of the tub. This was the life she had always dreamed of, but as she walked past the mirror, she suddenly saw something appearing on her face. It started to appear more, looking like large blisters filled with something inside. Anna panicked, remembering the clinic's message from 3 days ago, reminding her to come for maintenance, but she had ignored it. At this point, there was probably no way to fix it. The blisters kept spreading all over Anna's face, causing her immense pain. Maggots began to break out from the blisters, falling everywhere in the sink. Anna's face had completely mutated, with maggots crawling all over her skin. Everywhere was covered with maggots and pus from her face. This was likely the consequence she had to bear. The blisters grew larger and more numerous, wriggling all over Anna's face, causing her immense pain. By this time, it was too late to cry. Anna could only scream in terror, and then there was no more news of her. Back at the clinic, everything was still running as usual. Someone came to see the doctor for maintenance, probably using the same service Anna had. The nurse offered to ask the doctor if she should prepare anything, but it seemed to be a secret. The doctor smiled cunningly again, wanting to handle the preparations himself. It turned out that Anna's best friend had come for maintenance. She had also used the same cheap service as Anna, but unlike Anna, she always kept up with regular maintenance. She knew exactly what the doctor was doing, but for the sake of beauty, she accepted it, and over time, she had brought many clients to the clinic, which earned her some discounts. The doctor also reminded her that using this method required a sacrifice, being bound to it forever. Anyone who didn't comply would suffer the consequences. She understood who the doctor was referring to. Maggots were crawling beneath her skin, but she still wore a sinister smile, probably knowing what would happen to Anna. But because of Anna's arrogance, she hadn't reminded her. It was a consequence Anna had to face alone.
This terrifying story is about a young man named Max who was on his way back to his hometown. On that day, Max was driving his car quite fast and crashed into a white vehicle parked in the middle of the road. When he regained his composure, his head was bleeding from the impact. Max muttered angrily to himself, wondering who the fool was who left a car in the middle of the road like that. Wasn't that asking for death? Immediately, Max stepped out of the car to inspect the damage and see who the owner of the white car was. However, to Max's bad luck, no one was around. Perhaps the car had broken down and its owner was out looking for help. The area was quite remote, and Max knew getting a tow truck here would be nearly impossible. Max decided to call his best friend, asking him to bring a tow truck to help, but it would take more than 2 hours for his friend to arrive. So, Max anxiously sat and waited. As time passed, he grew more impatient from hunger. Suddenly, Max heard the distant sound of a bell ringing. He saw an old man approaching with food. Max recognized him as a regular vendor in this remote mountain pass, selling a local delicacy, bitter vegetable soup. Most families in the area sold vegetables, and when the vegetables were close to wilting, they would make a hearty soup with a mix of the remaining produce. Max quickly waved the old man down. He was relieved to see him, as food was exactly what he needed. Max happily ordered 2 bowls of the soup. The old man smiled warmly, replying that Max was the first customer of the day. The old man had expected a slow day, but with Max as his first customer, it was sure to bring him luck. Out of curiosity, Max peered into the pot to see what the soup looked like. He paused, feeling uneasy. Though it was supposed to be a vegetable soup, the appearance was unappetizing. Inside was a thick, dark purple liquid that smelled surprisingly fragrant, causing Max's hunger to grow even stronger. Max thought to himself that, being in such a remote area, it was good enough to have food, even if he knew street vendors like this couldn't guarantee cleanliness. He urged the old man to fill up a bowl for him. The old man immediately ladled a bowl of soup and handed it to Max. Max gratefully accepted the bowl, surprised at how delicious it smelled. After all, it was just a vegetable soup, so it was extremely cheap. After handing Max the bowl, the old man smiled strangely and told him to enjoy it, as his soup was the best local specialty. Suddenly, the old man shook a bell lightly. Strangely, the old man said that if Max drank the soup in time with the ringing of the bell, he would experience its true, wonderful taste. The old man then asked Max, "Do you prefer drinking the soup or eating the vegetables?" Starving, Max ignored the old man's strange question and immediately took a sip of the soup. After one sip, Max felt that the taste was indeed excellent. But as he thought about the old man's question, he became confused. Clearly, there was no vegetable in the bowl. Why did the old man ask him such a strange question? The old man smiled again and asked, "Do you want to drink soup or eat the vegetables?" After hearing Max's confusion, the old man laughed louder and told him to enjoy the surprise. The old man shook the bell more forcefully and told Max to keep drinking. Something strange was about to happen. Sure enough, after another sip, Max realized that there was now something in the soup, a texture that felt like meat. He asked the old man, "Is this seafood or meat?" The old man happily replied, "It's meat." The magic of this soup is that the more you drink, the more you'll feel as if you're eating meat. Max was astonished. How could a vegetable soup create the sensation of eating meat? He then asked the old man for another bowl. This time, Max eagerly ladled the soup himself, but strangely, it was just broth. No meat to be seen, just as the old man had said. Despite this, the soup tasted so good that Max ended up finishing 4 bowls. Each time Max drank, the old man shook the bell again, and the soup seemed to grow more and more delicious. The sound of the bell and the increasingly delicious soup made Max more and more excited, to the point where he lost control of himself. In a daze, Max grew more and more excited with every ring of the bell. He felt as though everything around him was spinning, his surroundings becoming hazy. It was like he was in a dream, and soon everything before him went dark. Max collapsed right there, unconscious. An hour later, the sound of the bell woke him up. The old man called Max, and strangely, Max seemed to follow his commands. Max, now dazed, felt weak all over. He even vomited as the soup made his stomach churn. Max could feel something crawling inside his stomach, coming up to his mouth. Max rushed to his car. He ran to the car's mirror. Then he quickly turned on the flashlight on his phone. As the light illuminated, Max was horrified to see dreadful things emerging from his mouth. Tiny parasites were living in his mouth, making him itch uncontrollably. Terrified, Max screamed in agony. Max desperately tried to scrape the disgusting creatures from his mouth and tongue, but to his horror, they were clinging tightly to his tongue, slowly attacking his body. Max could see that these creatures had many legs, allowing them to hold firmly onto his mouth and tongue. Max couldn't believe that in such a short time, he had consumed all the soup. The old man looked into the pot and said that his children were well fed now. With a strange grin, the old man shook the bell. He shook it even more forcefully, commanding the parasites inside Max's body to break free. Blood poured out along with thousands of grotesque creatures as Max uncontrollably vomited. Before Max, there was a pool of thick black blood, accompanied by the horrifying creatures. The old man's face grew increasingly malicious as he said that it was time for his children to emerge. He thanked Max for feeding them. Max then realized that the parasites were controlled by the bell the old man was holding. Max suddenly understood the sharp pain only happened when the old man rang the bell. Filled with rage, Max rushed at the old man. Max used all his strength to attack, hoping to stop the old man from reacting. Max's punch landed squarely on the old man, knocking him to the ground. The bell fell from his hand. Max quickly picked up the bell. Max was shocked to realize that such a small object could control the creatures. However, Max still didn't know how to use the bell to make the creatures leave his body. As Max looked at the bell, he saw one of the creatures that had grown larger, now with wings, sucking the fresh blood off the bell. Upon closer inspection, Max saw that the creatures resembled wasps with sharp claws, and they were clearly being controlled by the sounds from the bell. At that moment, the old man's voice echoed, causing Max to freeze. The old man revealed that the creature was the leader of the parasites, and that it only obeyed his commands, not the bell. The old man had used his own body to nurture this creature. He gestured for it to bring the bell back to him, and Max, as if in a trance, could do nothing but follow. In an instant, the bell returned to the old man's hands. Under the old man's control, Max slowly walked toward the pot of soup. Stopping before the pot, Max began to scream in agony, each ring of the bell accompanying his pain. Along with the bell's sound, Max's flesh began to melt, pouring into the pot. Terrifyingly, the parasites crawled out from Max's body, from his eyes, nose, and mouth, gnawing on his flesh. In an instant, the creatures turned Max into a pile of mushy, disfigured meat. He died in unimaginable pain. All of Max's flesh and blood flowed into the empty pot. Shortly afterward, the old man had a fresh pot of soup. He laughed gleefully, never imagining that the creatures could turn Max into such a thick, soupy mass, which now contained their eggs. The old man gleefully cleaned up the mess and waited for his next prey. As the day turned dark, the remote and desolate area was perfect for such horrifying events. About 30 minutes later, a white car slowly approached. The car moved slowly, as Max had warned his friend earlier about the dangerous mountain road. It was none other than Max's best friend. Confidently, the old man stood and waited for his next victim. The young man asked the old man about the owner of the red car. The old man lied, saying that Max had asked him to tell anyone who arrived to wait for him, as he was looking for a place with a signal and would be back soon. Trusting the old man's words, the young man waited in his car. After a while, the old man asked if he was hungry and invited him for a bowl of soup. Naturally, the young man did not refuse. As night fell, the old man gave a sinister smile. A month later, the city was in an uproar over mysterious disappearances and the spread of a strange plague of man-eating insects. Organization X took responsibility, but issued a warning of a coming pandemic that would wipe out humanity.
This story took place in a small village. On a day, a baby was born. The couple had been married for more than 3 years when they decided to have the baby. They were so happy. Usually, when a child was born, people often invited a Taoist to come to pray, to give the child a name and consider its fate. But after looking at the child, this Taoist said that the child would surely have a disaster in the future and would not live long. The husband was surprised to hear. He asked why the old Taoist would say something like that. The old man shook his head thoughtfully, saying that this child's horoscope was extremely bad. The husband very much loved his son, so he begged the older Taoist to find a way to save his son's life. The Taoist immediately changed his tone to a softer one. He told the husband that there was nothing he couldn't do, just adding a little sincerity would do. The husband knew that the Taoist was talking about money, so he couldn't help but feel sad. He lamented that his family didn't have a penny, so he couldn't find it anywhere. The older Taoist's face darkened. He knew he could not make more money from this house, so he decided to leave. The Taoist did not say anything. He immediately knelt down and begged him to have mercy on the poor child and showed the husband how to rescue his son. His older Taoist only worked for money. The Taoist coldly brushed off the husband's hand and said, "If you don't have money, don't have a gift, then hire someone else." After returning to the house, the husband slammed his hand on the table. He scolded the older Taoist for knowing only about money but not caring about people. The wife came to comfort her husband. She thought that the older Taoist deliberately fabricated the story to cheat them and advised her husband not to pay attention. Immediately she was scolded by her husband. He said that the Taoist's words were trustworthy. They must believe the words. It was better to trust wrongly than to let their son die. The wife could not argue with her husband, so she only obeyed. After that, the husband angrily took the cup of water and took a big sip. Finally, because the family did not have any money, he could not invite another Taoist to celebrate the ceremony. The husband decided to find a way to solve his son's bad luck himself. There was a method handed down in folklore from time immemorial. People were afraid that their son or daughter would be hard to raise and would often get sick and have accidents. So after using this method, if the baby would overcome it, he would grow up peacefully. This method was for children with diseases that were most difficult to treat, and at the time chickenpox was the most dangerous disease. The husband wanted to take a risk to save his son. For many days the husband also ran and searched everywhere. He always returned with a tired face with no news. He ran around the county seat but couldn't find a single child with chickenpox. The wife suggested changing to another method. However, the husband still insisted on doing what he wanted. He always thought that if he did not experience death, his son could not change his life. However, the wife meant there was no need to let his son get chickenpox, because even if the disease was cured, it would have left a bad scar which would make others laugh at him. After hearing this, the husband got angry again, berating his wife for not knowing anything, because compared to appearance, life was more important. The next day, the husband continued to look for the person with chickenpox. While searching, he suddenly saw a commotion around. He immediately went over to take a look. There was a palace of the Sheng family. Inside, there was a person who had just died. The door of the house was closed. He then approached and found a neighbor nearby to ask for information about why the person in the palace had died and from what. The person also said a boy had just died from chickenpox in the palace. This is when the father and husband lost his mind, wondering if chickenpox could be cured, so how the people in the palace would die. But according to the news from the palace, due to superstition, people thought that the boy was haunted or cursed. They invited magicians to exorcise demons instead of calling doctors. Then, seeing that the baby or the kid was about to die, they thought of calling a doctor to treat the boy, but it was too late. When the husband heard that, he felt secretly happy. That night, it was dark. The husband decided to sneak into the Sheng palace. After a while of hard work, he would climb into the house in front of him. He would find the child's coffin. Seeing that there was no one around, the husband quickly entered and pulled the lid of the coffin down. When he saw what was inside, his face was filled with terror. The child's dead body was disgusting. There were blisters all over, bleeding, exuding a strong stench. At this time, the wife was still sleeping at home when there suddenly was a loud knock on the door. She opened it and saw her husband coming back. He was emotional, announcing that he had found someone with chickenpox. Then, he showed her a piece of meat he had to cut off. He excitedly showed his wife that this was the meat of a child who had chickenpox. They felt sorry for the child of the Sheng family, but they thought that if this child's flesh and blood helped their son survive the disaster, it was also considered a virtue. They took the infected flesh and blood and applied it to their son. They waited. If the child showed any symptoms, they would call the doctor immediately. And then, in the middle of the night, while falling asleep on the table, the wife suddenly heard the cry of her baby boy. That night, the child cried loudly and had a persistent fever. Knowing that her son had chickenpox, the wife immediately asked her husband to find a doctor. He immediately ran to call the doctors in the village, but the husband went everywhere, knocking on every door, and no one answered. A neighbor also said that the doctors at this clinic had a strange disease and that not one of them would come out for many days. His son was in urgent need of a doctor. Only one doctor was close by. He still couldn't understand how these doctors would get a strange infection that would keep them from treating patients. It turned out that the doctor got the infection from the son of the Sheng family. The doctor's body was covered with blisters like chickenpox, but not chickenpox. The doctor's family was also infected. The doctor and all the other doctors were infected. The word sounded like a thunderbolt to the husband. After returning home, the man felt deep regret for having acted foolishly. Before he could say anything, the father and husband was stunned to see his wife and child standing in front of him. The wife was bursting into tears, asking why the doctor didn't come because she still didn't know what was happening. And then they were helpless and could only quickly take their child to another clinic in a different district. When they found out, they realized they were wrong all along. But it was all too late. They had been responsible for the death of their own child. The strange disease had no cure. The older Tower's prediction had accidentally come true. However, not only the child, but the whole family passed away.